listening to Enlivening Musings, a podcast to enhance your life so you live fully alive. Sponsored by the Pleasure Fairy app. Download it for more support. Welcome to Enlivening Musings. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Katie.
And today we're going to talk about being yin and or bringing more yin into our lives, just really tuning into that. We've talked about, feminine, masculine energy a lot before. And as we've said then, it's a lot easier sometimes to digest the information when we talk yin yang, because within the yin side, there is some yang. It's not just about being just one way. And within the yang, there's some yin. So there's this harmony, and we all have both energetic principles within us. And regardless of who we are, gender, any of that, we will have a dominant essence. And something that we see all around us is, so apply this however it applies for you. But I'm going to use just standard woman as my verbiage for right now. But we see so many women who are living completely depleted, overwhelmed, lost, anxious, disconnected. I mean, the list goes on. And a big theme as we both are like working with people and tuning into our own selves and what we desire in life is that we've been in this so yang world, this go, 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 this like goal-oriented action, do it no matter what.
Girl boss era.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so when we can kind of shift that, even if it's just in one area of our life, we're able to bring more of that nourishment, more of that juiciness back. And that is the yin. The yin is that flowy, juicy, it's like it's water. It's cold water. I'm just thinking about that because of a class that I'm going to be teaching. And it's just like I talk about us being cold water and the yang being more fire. But how we bring that in and, tuning into yourself and what you need and want and all of that is important.
Yeah. It's interesting because we were talking a little bit before and I'm just always so curious because we're kind of we're like the generation after like feminism really took root. Okay, so I'm in my early 40s and my mom did stay home with us, but there was a lot of moms working. And I feel like it was like that first time where there was a lot of moms that went back to work.
Yeah, my mom worked.
Yeah, and so now, we're really in this space of like both work and mom and do it all. And I hear that so much and people are like, but my mom did it and she seemed fine. But I'm like, was she really? Like, is she really?
Yeah. Is she still? How juicy and vibrant was she that whole time? Like seeming fine is different than living fully alive and feeling juicy and ecstatic and
right. And what are you picking up now? Like it comes back to the conversation I have all the time is we're also the first generation that's all in therapy.
Right.
Our parents probably didn't go to therapy. Almost everyone our age is going to therapy or has been in therapy. So we're in a really interesting state, like every generation is, right? There's always this growth. So it's been interesting for me to kind of continue to navigate and feel because there is the pressure to still be all the feminine mothering wife things in the traditional role. And for me, I like that because I do feel like I'm very feminine. I really enjoy that part of me. But then there's also this other side of me that feels like I still need to be providing financially. Mm-hmm. And so it's just really interesting. And I think that does lead to a lot of burnout and a lot of mixed feelings because, I want to be doing all these things, but I don't have time. And so it's an interesting place to be in and explore. And I think the more we are talking about it, just how that is just natural, like the role of the woman. And I think talking about kind of the energetics of that, and I'm curious of how that'll make people feel about what I just said of having both those roles and what might be possible to move into. Do you want to talk about that and like the
Yeah.
heart opening of the woman that we were discussing before?
Yeah. Well, and also it doesn't, we're both and people over here. So it doesn't even have to be that you can't have both of those things. It's just creating your own fluidity within them. So you're not going like hard at work and ignoring and completely, because I do love like work and I know you love your work, you know what I mean? But it's how can we bring the more yin aspects to that. So I'll go to that probably next because there's a lot to say just in like that realm also. But when you're talking about just like the home and relationship and that type of stuff, and even just bringing up therapy, how many women are, or even couples are in couples therapy, and part of that is that lost dynamic of our polarities.
Yes.
Because we have both parties trying to do something different, and it's not that men can't pick up the house to be a man. It's not that. They can still do that. But it's how can they be in their divine masculine essence at the same time. And so for that would be them really tuning into their consciousness. And as they're tuning into their consciousness, they're now giving you that presence. And that's something that we're seeing a big lack of in relationships and frustration with. How many women are sitting there next to their partner and their partner's just staring at their phone or playing video games or doing something, and they're not giving them their presence. And the woman is wanting that because that presence allows them to soften their heart and feel safe. So, so that's their side. Then our side is being able to really soften our hearts no matter what is going on. And if we want to, we can be the one who changes the whole dynamic just by doing this ourselves, where we're tuning into our hearts. And those of you who have been with us a long time, we talk about this all the time because it's so important. And as we just keep tuning into our hearts, we can soften our hearts. We're now emotionally available and we're actually vulnerable. And so many women have decided we shouldn't be vulnerable because we got to be equals. So when we actually do that and we bring our open hearts to the table, they feel that, tune into that, and now they can open their hearts and they can hear your desires and your needs. Now, that doesn't mean that this happens like that, because they might at first be like, what is this? Like, this is so brand new. I've never experienced this before. And they might feel like you bringing your desires are like as criticisms. And men tend to do that. They tend to take, like, as you're sitting there saying, gosh, I would love da 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 da. And they're like, oh, she's criticizing me, because it helps for them to do their own work. So for them to be able to shift their own perception of when their woman is bringing them their open heart to, I want to hold safe space for this and connect with this, and then their hearts get to soften. And then that's where all this magic happens, is because now everybody's connected at that heart level and they're not just playing these roles. Like, life is just so much bigger than that. Like, we're not just here just to like partner up and like play these roles. Like, we're here to like create magic.
Yeah.
And play.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting because I even think of this, a few comments I would say on that. Like, I think of how this works even in like little micro bits. Like, if that's why going out on dates with your partner or husband can be so great, because I think when we do that, like, there's no phones, like we're talking, we're connecting, we're laughing, and it feels really good afterwards. It feels like a deeper sense of connection, right? So that's kind of like a little mini example. But my thought is like, how to support, like what would you say to support for a woman that's like trying to do this, like open her heart, and she's just feeling like she's not breaking through, and just feeling then really vulnerable and hurt?
Yeah. So for me, it's solo cultivation. It goes back to the self, because the more you're giving yourself what you want and need, then the more, if you show up like that in partnership, it's not going to knock you down. It's not going to feel like you're taking it personally, which of course that's also a great, I don't know the word, lesson. That's not the word I'm looking for. Belief, I guess. It's a Toltec tradition, to not take things personally. So applying that to your life, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. But the more tuned into yourself and what you are, then you just show up in that way, and you show up softer. So like, they usually won't jump to the more rigid, she's criticizing me. You just keep breathing into your heart. It's a constant practice. It really is. I mean, I've been doing this now for years. And just this year, there's like new levels of that,
Right.
within my own relationship, and how that shows up without having that resistance.
Yeah. And it probably, I know when I first started doing more heart work, I mean, it was scary. And I feel that when I work with patients now too, and I'm thankful for my own journey and experience, because it's not always like go into your heart and it feels like rainbows and butterflies. I go into my heart and it's sad. And it's like a black piece of coal, you know? So, and being able to sit with that. I think that is kind of what we're forgetting, is that it's not just like go into the heart and it's this big like cartoon rainbow. And so it takes some inner work for sure, and some deep healing and self-love. And there's no magic prescription or protocol for that. I think that's just what we're all trying to figure out. Sometimes I wish there was. Could someone show me the steps to heal my inner child? Is there a protocol for this, please? But there's just not. It's just, we just have to keep taking that step every day.
Well, and what's interesting with that, like, I'm just thinking about a couple people who I've helped lately, and, I say, like, go to your partner, but you've got to soften your own heart. So, like, you might be feeling whatever it is. It could be, like, I'm the biggest piece of yuck and whatever. And here I need to talk to them, and they're going to, like, totally shut me out and think I'm this awful person and whatever. But when you're going to them with that softness and that vulnerability, then I also say that. Like, say to them, I'm feeling really raw right now.
Yeah.
And and if you can tune into what you want, like, do you want a hug? Do you want space? What is it that you're wanting? Like, and that's what happens when you tune into your heart too. You get clear on what it is you would love. What do you want from this situation? Like, you're not just going up to your partner to spew all your crap and be like, these are all of my demands. This is everything I'd love, and and like whatever. It's not like that. That's not going to get you results. It's not going to be received well. That's just unloading your emotional baggage. That's, which makes me think about the whole concept of therapy and the support in that. And if we're in our yin selves, we're doing things like giving that to the earth and moving all of that and understanding different things. Anyways, circling right back. When you can go to them though, with this is what's happening. And what I would love is for you to just hold me. Or as I'm exploring this, I'm realizing I just need a little bit of space, and I want you to know I'm just loving you, and I want to be able to go and cry by myself, but I want you to know that I'm crying. I want you to know that. And that's something that's happened with this whole thing, is like, when women are hiding their emotions, like they're going off, like their partners hurt them just by like not doing anything on purpose, but because the woman's triggered, and then they go off and they cry in the bathroom by themselves, not letting their partner know, that's not helping. It's not showing them your heart. It's not doing that. It's hiding all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that creates the walls. Now you've got the walls and the boundaries, and they can't penetrate through that. And they don't want to even, because there's no satisfaction on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you come to them with your open heart and you're telling them like, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm processing, and I just need then they want to do that. Mm-hmm. And if they don't in the moment, you might need to give them some time, because maybe they're, especially if this is just new for you, like they're trying to figure that out. Like, what is this request? She's never done this before. This is what's happening here, you know? They might be thrown off their kilter. They're not used to supporting you like that. But it ties into the fact that like we teach people how to treat us. Mm-hmm. So like if you're wanting them to show up differently, and you show up differently and ask and say, this is what I want, then it all does different stuff.
Yeah. And just acknowledge as you're doing it, like it's going to be all part of like the healing experience, and it doesn't always feel good right away. And
right.
So like just staying with it, staying with the feeling as it comes up, even if you're feeling unsupported, give the process time, I would say.
Yeah, and it's not feeling natural even.
Right.
And that's because we have been tuned out of so much of our yin. Mm-hmm. But this is a natural thing when we're in our yin energy. But we weren't taught it at all with the whole realm of just like, let's live in this masculine culture and keep up and do and do and do. Mm-hmm. Which I think might be a decent segue into back, like, well, if you are girl boss and you like pieces of that and you want pieces of that, bringing yin principles into that can be really supportive. And again, like this is all about then tuning into yourself and what resonates for you. I break so many like of the rules of all of this stuff because it doesn't land for me. And certain things get so young and so action oriented that I am just like, no, I'm just not going to participate in that anymore. And that's something I've been doing a lot in my business, all my businesses. But I was, talking to Kay the other day about actually her and like all my VIP ladies on the Pleasure Fairy app about being more yin in how I'm posting on social media, because I'm honoring my own personal cycle. We're cyclical, which is also an important part of all of this. When you're connected with your yin and you're nourishing your yin, you're honoring that cycle. So when I am outgoing and in my more ovulatory phase, I'll just sum it to that, even though it's longer than just those few days. That's when I'm out there. That's when I want to post. That's when I want to connect with people. And or even maybe I will schedule some things for when I'm during my more yin phase of like bleeding and preparing to bleed and that type of stuff, Maybe I will schedule some stuff for then. But my aim is not to be so following all of these rules that are so yang oriented and like, you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this. And that's the way to success, and organize it this way and do it this way. And like, and the more I'm doing that, the better that feels. And then I even just had a huge realization this week about the fact that I've been running my brick and mortar in way more of a yin way since 2017, just before 2017 is when, we kind of started creating it. And it's involved a lot of that trust in myself, trust in the process of life, all of that is more yin, and it's not so structured. It's not so yang. And it's feeling really good for me to claim that. And I actually love that somebody brought it to my attention this last week. I'm like super grateful for that, even though my initial response was like, what? No way. But that's it. Like, that's like all that young programming of like, that's the wrong way to do it. You know, that was like initiated within me. And I'm like, wait, what? No. And I breathed it into my heart and I'm like, what is going on here? And I tuned in and I'm like, nah, that's the jam for me. That feels really good. I am aligned with that. That's what I want. I want to be living in that flow and doing all of that. And so my point in all of this is that if you are wanting that, you can have it, but doing it in a way that nourishes yourself so you're not being led into burnout, because that's what we're seeing happen so often is a woman's taking on all of these roles and it's all go, young oriented, like structure, da. And so get creative. Bring in the nourishment, bring in the ways where it actually feels good for you. And you know, then maybe it's not, maybe you're only working, quote unquote, during this 1.5 weeks of your cycle or something, because that's the time when it's so juicy and you've got all this extra energy.
Yeah. I mean, it's just hearing all that reminds me of just, that's how I always let my business flow too. It was just, I felt like I had just kind of made like a soul contract, like this is the way it was going to flow. And I didn't have to do all these things that everyone else was doing and like all the noise out there of like, you know, buying this program and having a coach and like all these things that I needed to do. I was like, I don't have to do any of that. I'm just going to like do my thing and it'll happen. And that's how I did it. And then I felt some things kind of shifting out of that alignment a little bit. And I could see how it was making me feel stressed in a way. And so it's a good reminder of just like, oh yeah, that's not how I do.
Yeah.
And like, there might be times where it is a little bit slower, quote unquote, in certain ways. But deep inside, like it's meant to be, because that feels good.
Yeah.
That feels good to me.
Well, and it's not about having no structure either.
Right.
Right? Like, it's just that when you're in that flow, you see where you can bring that structure in, where it's supportive and feels good and holds the container for the creation.
Yeah. Because there have been those things that come up where I'm like, oh, I'm super grateful for this structure or thing, because it does give me then some more freedom in other ways.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's cool. Just, I just would love to see a world that we are just allowed to just totally be in our feminine and live cyclically. And, you know, I kind of have an idea of what that would look like. I think it's possible. It seems far away, like, to be honest, but I hear more and more women talking about it, and I see women light up when I share just those thoughts with them of like this realization.
Yeah.
Of a deep knowing, like, oh, wow. Yeah. I wish it was like that too. Or I wish I would have known that. Or, I even feel like now just learning more about just my menstrual cycle and like loving how I feel in different phases of it and enjoying, the benefits of each phase. And now I'm like, oh, but like I'm in my mid 40s. How much longer do I have?
Yeah.
You know, like that's what people say. Sometimes that menopause is more of that grieving because you didn't live cyclically all that time. So, which is fine to grieve something like that. It is. But that's kind of my mission too, is just to help women know that and learn that and feel empowered and be more yin, figure that out. It's always something I ponder.
Right. And I think it's cool because if there's any younger people listening, then they can adapt some of that. They can like see how they could live more cyclically. And I love that vision of the world being more like that. I was just talking to a client yesterday about it, and it was kind of like the first time she heard of this, and it was like a big aha. And I said, my family knows on these 2 days I'm off limits. And that's how, I'm bringing some of this in. I try not to work on those days when I can plan around it. And I know other people running their business that way, like these women-centric businesses where they're doing like their launches and things during everybody's ovulatory phase. They're trying to like plan, you know what I mean?
I love that.
And it's like how respectful of not just the women working there, but of the earth and the whole,
I know it gets so deep. And I think just also for men to realize that too, like I said, we're just kind of breaking away. And I think a lot of the older generations, it's difficult for them to see people that look like they quote unquote don't want to work.
Oh yeah.
It kind of goes back to our, was that end?
Both end.
Both
yeah.
end.
Yes, end.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with people wanting to have more fun? What's wrong with men showing more sensitivity and being open with their emotions and not being the tough guy? It's interesting hearing all these stories come up and what people feel. And I'm like, well, things are changing and quickly. And I just always just keep encouraging that younger generation, like, yes, tapping into what is true. Yeah.
Right.
The natural. We have to. We don't have a choice. We have to connect with nature and the earth right now. It's very important, I think, for our survival.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And so, again, the invitation is more just to bring more of the yin in, especially if you've been living in a depletion state from being so young, if you are yin dominant. And again, anybody who's made it this far, hopefully you've understood that, you apply this to yourself however it is. You could be male and be more yin dominant. You could be female and be more yang dominant, and it's not that. It's just like what actually nourishes you.
Yes.
And finding your own personal harmony, because and again, different phases and all of that.
Yeah.
So tweaking how much input, output, flowiness, structure, whatever it is that you're needing so that you feel really fully alive and juicy and awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. You can find us on Instagram at Enlivening Musings. Connect with Crystal on her app Pleasure Fairy. Connect with Katie on her website wellnesswithkatie.com. Enjoy.